the manufacturing materials. So that'll be A. And you're probably going to need to transport the product to where it's sold. That's B. And you're also going to have to pay your labor costs. Labor costs are represented by C. And then when consumers purchase the product, they're going to pay a final price. And that final price is D. However, there's a problem with that, which is what? Which is that there's no way for the capitalist to make a profit. He can't change how much A costs. He can't change how much B costs. So the profit of the capitalist can only be extracted from the value put into it by the worker. And this is the basis of Marxism, the understanding of surplus value. So C, the labor value, is divided. You have C1, which is what the worker actually gets paid. And then you have C2, which is the profit that the capitalist makes. And it all adds up to D, which is the final cost of the product. Now, the way people in the United States who talk about Marxism generally talk about this is they say, well, this is unfair. They say the worker is not getting paid the full value of his labor. And that's true, and that's an important part of Marxism. But they're missing one of the most important points, which is not just that it's unfair, and then people argue, well, what about the employer? He put up the money, doesn't he deserve to be? That's all a distraction. Because the important thing to understand is this. C1 is always going to be less than D. The wages paid out to the worker are never enough to buy back the product that he produces. There is always more products created than there are wages paid out to the worker. And this is the built-in problem of capitalism, the problem of overproduction. And it is always there in the capitalist economy. It never goes away. And they have invented all kinds of crazy mechanisms to try and deal with the problem of overproduction. Part of the reason that there is such financialization now is to deal with this problem. Part of the reason that the US government has purchased billions and billions of dollars worth of cheese only to bury it in a cave in Springfield, Missouri, is to deal with this problem. It is an ongoing present problem, and it's a problem acknowledged by most capitalist economists. John Maynard Keynes said the problem was underconsumption rather than overproduction, but he was pointing to the same problem. The military-industrial complex in the United States is an effort to deal with this problem, to keep spending going. There's all kinds of mechanisms that they've dealt with and invented to try and resolve this problem, but they still don't resolve it. But it gets worse. It gets worse because of something else. Right? So we talked about this is the supplies, A. We talked about how this is the shipping, B. C is the labor cost. What is the capitalist always trying to do? He wants to maximize the amount of profit he makes. And one of the main ways they do that is with what's called labor-saving technology. Get rid of workers and replace workers with machines. So essentially, they're reducing the percentage that C is into the overall cost. As they eliminate workers from the process of production, as there's fewer and fewer workers involved, as machines take the place of workers, the role of C in production decreases. However, there's a little bit of a problem with that. As C goes down, C2 also goes down, right? As C decreases, C2 also decreases. And as the role of the worker in production is reduced, the rate of profit that the capitalist makes goes down. And this is called the tendency of the falling rate of profit. Only human labor creates value. And this is something that Adam Smith acknowledged. This is something some of the popes even acknowledge. Human labor creates all value. And so when you reduce the role of human labor in production, the amount of value created decreases. And the ability of the capitalist to extract surplus value also decreases. So this causes the capitalist to have to churn out even more products, because he's making less and less of a profit on the overall product. He's making less and less of a percentage, so he has to churn them out. So this problem of the worker never being able to buy back what he produces and more products being created than are necessary, this problem becomes exacerbated. And this points to what is understood to be the deeply irrational nature of the capitalist system. In a rational society, self-driving cars would be a great thing because this job, this labor that human beings engage in called driving would not be necessary anymore. With artificial intelligence and sensors, we'd be able to have all the people involved in driving, Uber drivers, traffic courts, truck drivers, they would all be able to do something else. And labor could be expended elsewhere, we'd have a wealthier society. But under capitalism, self-driving cars would lead to riots in the streets. And this is the problem with capitalism. This is Marxism. This is what Karl Marx wrote.